Welcome, survivors. This is Eerie Night of the Pseudoposse, and with all the changes brought in the 1.0 update, I figured it would be beneficial to make an updated building tips video. This video is aimed to help new players and veterans alike, as there is useful information presented on various aspects of base building, including the very basics for beginners, zombie AI behavior, top spit, constructing fighting positions, electricity fundamentals and strategies, excellent base building shapes, anti-rage building tips, dealing with vultures and dogs, and much more. Links for any relevant video will be included in the video description in case you want a deeper dive on a particular topic. So without further ado, let's begin. Our first set of tips will focus on the fundamentals, Structural Stability 101. Before we take the time to learn all the intricacies of zombie behavior and how we can best screw with them, we need to understand how blocks work. Blocks can be stacked on top of each other without restriction. In essence, they have infinite stability when placing them in a vertical column. Doesn't matter which material is used, they all have this capability. All stability derives from bedrock, and as long as the ground in between is solid, your column will have perfect stability. Notice how in stability mode, it's all pure green. That means every block is at its maximum stability. Horizontal stability works differently. As you can see once I build out from our column, and as I extend further out, the block preview becomes more colored and eventually red. Placing an additional block after this will cause a collapse. Because each additional block I place is not directly supported through the ground like our column, each new block becomes more unstable. Unlike vertical columns, material quality does factor into the horizontal support. You'll notice how when we go from wood to cobblestone, concrete, and then finally steel, the general trend is an increase in the amount of blocks that are supported. How can you determine how much horizontal support a block can provide? Each material has two stats that determine its capability to support other blocks: mass and horizontal support. Take wood for example. It has a mass of 5 and a horizontal support of 40. Since it can support 40 mass in the horizontal direction, and each wood block has a mass of 5, that means a fully supported wood block from our column here can support up to 8 wood blocks. Let's take a look at cobblestone and concrete. Both of them have a mass of 10 and can horizontally support a combined mass of 120. This means both cobblestone and concrete can support 12 of their respective blocks. Steel has the heaviest mass at 20, but the strongest horizontal support of 300, allowing it to hold 15 horizontal steel blocks. This logic also works if you mix materials. Since our wood block can support 40 and cobblestone has a mass of 10, it can only support 4 cobblestone blocks before collapse. Steel is even worse as it has double the mass of cobblestone, and thus wood can only handle 2 steel blocks. As such, it is generally recommended to prioritize upgrading supports in general, as you don't want to cause an accidental collapse of your base. Let's tie it all together. Take our extremely long concrete horizontal structure here, fully supported on either end. As you can see, as we move toward the center, the block stability becomes more red. If we support it directly from ground in roughly the middle, you'll see the block immediately above the column turns green, and the surrounding blocks shift from red to lighter colors. This type of support provides the most stability to a suspended horizontal structure. However, if we place a column to the side and support our horizontal structure with a horizontal support, notice how the stability improves, but not as much. The attached block isn't green, rather a light shade of orange. Because the directly attached block is not itself fully supported, it provides less stability. Here's what happens if we place the direct vertical support back. In general, you want to go for direct supports as much as possible, though there are scenarios in which a horizontal support is better despite providing less stability. We'll discuss scenarios a bit later, but the main culprit behind that is, of course, zombies. Let's shift now over to zombies, and in order to build effective horde bases, we'll need to understand how zombies work. At its core, Zombies versus the Player is a tower defense game. It says so itself on the Steam store page. So we need to understand the rules of the system. Rule number 1. Zombies are incredibly lazy. They don't like to burn calories, and as such, they will always prefer to take the shortest route to the player. Take these two paths. The red path is obviously shorter than the yellow. If we spawn in some zombies, they will completely ignore the yellow and always run down the red path. However, your base will most likely not have a free open path directly leading to your position. What happens when we block off the shortest path with wood blocks? In this test, one zombie chose to run down the yellow path while the others ran down the red. The zombie that ran down the yellow path felt that the wood was too much of a barrier and decided the longer path was easier to reach me. The other ones, however, felt that they could rip through the wood along the shortest path easier than traveling the extra distance. Cobblestone tells a similar story, except we see that roughly half the zombies opt for the yellow path, and upgrading to concrete continues that trend. In fact, these zombies have second thoughts about the red path and decide to turn around towards the yellow. They felt that the barrier was so strong, it would be more efficient for them to take the longer route. This is because zombies will take the path of least resistance. So if the shortest available path is completely barricaded, say for example the foundation or walls of your base, then zombies will opt to take the path of least resistance. If, however, they feel your walls are too weak, they will bust right through them. Interestingly, there is an exception to this logic. If we make our paths equal length, and on one side we place iron doors, which have 5,000 hit points, and on the other side we place cobblestone, which has 1,500 hit points, logic would dictate that zombies will rush for the cobblestone, as it is the path of least resistance. However, we see the exact opposite. Zombies consistently rush for the door. There is some overriding logic for zombies to specifically target doors if they are along the path to the player. So be careful in how you use doors in your build, and make sure to have several layers of doors to override their desire to come knocking. Now what happens if there is no direct path to the player? Well, in that scenario, zombies will enter destruction mode and will seek to destroy any block supporting your position. Naturally, this means bases can fail if the zombies are able to destroy the only path leading to the player. As such, it is vital to always adequately support your paths or to have backup paths just in case the worst happens. We'll discuss some strategies for safeguarding your base a bit later on, but for now, we're not done with our zombie friends. Counterintuitively, much of this behavior is the same in water. If there is a path leading from the bottom of the water up to the top, zombies will still follow the path despite being able to take a shortcut and simply swim over. Instead, they opt to swim all the way around to the stairs. Water makes zombies slower, and since they still follow the same type of path, you can make a great horde base in the water that will in some cases work better than building on ground. Never discount zombies' laziness. This next one is related to zombies following the path of least resistance, and if they feel it's too hard, they'll opt to beat on your base. Our next situation involves an issue prevalent in large bases. Notice this long staircase here. The reason for it will become clear if I destroy a section. Now that the stairs are not available, zombies are now deciding to beat on my supports. This is because they are falling too far from my other entrance back into my base. Even if there is a clear path to your base, if the zombies feel it is too long or hard to get through, they will enter destroy everything mode. The obvious solution is of course making it easier for them by building an extra set of stairs, which is why I made this large staircase to begin with for this particular base. It leads closer to their fall position and provides a shorter route than my other path up to my base. I like to incorporate an inverse stair design in many of my bases, even if they are smaller in size, to minimize the chance a lazy zombie will feel it is better to just bash on my supports rather than run up the path. Another thing to understand about zombies is that they love to hug walls of your structure as they run. Again, they like to run the shortest route, so if you have sharp contours, right angles, anything like that, one or more will get stuck and opt to bash on your blocks. As such, it is a good idea to remove any contours like this with other shapes. In this example, I placed some wedge 60 tips to remove my own problem corner, and just like that, zombies will continuously run and not get stuck, saving my slide from a beating. Related to the contour issue, zombies can easily get stuck on a set of straight stairs when they try to run around them. This can cause your stairs to get destroyed if you are not careful. Instead, it is wise to either extend your staircase out and create a nice angled staircase using corner stair pieces, or alternatively, you can just use the corner pieces and diagonal stair blocks to make a nice angled staircase that will allow zombies to run up easier. Though stupid zombies will always find a way to be stupid. Okay, at this point, you should have a pretty great understanding of how the zombie pathing AI works. But unlike most zombies, cops have a ranged attack. So how do you handle those guys? They have the same pathing logic, but if they have direct line of sight to your head, they will stop to spit at you. You can easily test this out yourself by making your head not visible, but other parts within field of view. And cops will not spit. However, there are exceptions to the rule. For reasons unknown, cops will spit at you despite having zero line of sight to any part of you. As it happens, there are certain shapes that cops will spit at you as if there was not a block preventing line of sight. In general, the square category of shapes is very unsafe. Only the cube itself is cop spit safe, while everything from cube halves, cube quarter meter, down to plate will not prevent cops from spitting at you, even if you are fully encased in the stuff. Other shape categories seem less restrictive, with a variety of ramps and round shapes providing protection from spit. These shapes are representative of what works, but a quick test like these will let you know what other blocks are safe to use. Needless to say, any shape with holes in it are no bueno. Doors, shutters, and hatches are safe when closed, except the steel hatches, which don't provide complete coverage. Cops will spit at you even if they are closed, so be aware. Alright, so we now understand zombie behavior, and in the case of cops, begrudgingly accepting it. We are ready to explore the best block shapes to use to fight from. Veterans of the game will be extremely familiar with these, the scaffold ladders. They are extremely effective blocks to use as your fighting position. Cops will spit at them because, well, your face is completely visible. But unlike other holy shapes, spit magically doesn't pass through, except once in a random while. Plus, you can still shoot and melee through it with ease. You can lob grenades through, as an added bonus, even Molotovs. Though I do find that if scaffold bars are oriented horizontally, Molotovs are more difficult to throw through without lighting yourself on fire. Not impossible, but you just need to be extra careful. Another great block that has been featured on our channel recently, since its introduction to the 1.0 update, is the pull 4-way. It can do everything the scaffold can do, so if you're tired of the scaffolds in your builds, give this a try. It does require some extra setup. Zombies, when squeezed, can crawl through, so putting in some half-length pillar 0.5 meter shapes can prevent them from fitting through, while still leaving a large opening to shoot in melee or lob grenades and Molotovs. The additional feature is the catwalk plate, which will slightly raise your height to make headshots easier. Any higher runs the risk of cops spitting at you, though if you tuck your fighting position out of line of sight, you can use cube half blocks. An alternative setup is to rotate the pull 4-way in the opposite direction and remove catwalk inside. Replace the path outside with something lower like the cube halves and place the half-length pillars on the outside. This will still protect you against cop spit, and once they close in, they drop down a bit to make headshots easier. Another option is to leave the path the same and instead add 2 rows of ramps that face each other, such that you can adjust your elevation based on what you are aiming at. This was a suggested tweak of my original design by a commenter, so thanks again for that one. Shutters and hatches are also useful as part of a fighting position. The drawback of them is obviously once you open them, you're completely exposed to cop spit. It's quite easy to melee, shoot, or lob grenades and Molotovs through it. One advantage over the previous designs is that it can be used as a means of ingress and egress. If you'd rather use one of the other setups, you could still use shutters or hatches off the side simply for the purpose of throwing grenades or Molotovs. This way you can keep the utility of the other shapes while making an easy way to throw consumables at zombies. Electricity is one of the most useful features in the game, and is arguably the most intimidating for new players to pick up right away. No worries, I'm going to break down all the fundamentals, starting with power sources. Everything begins with generating power, otherwise everything else is moot. This here is the generator bank. It is what you'll use in most playthrough runs, as it is easily unlockable early on. In order to power your generator, you will need to insert engines into the generator bank slots. Engines do not have an item quality, and thus every engine will perform the same. That is, each will generate 50 watts of power for a combined 300 watts maximum. However, you will need gasoline to fuel it, and it can hold up to 1,000 units of gas. Over time, the generator will consume fuel and you'll need to refuel it. The gas consumption is dependent on how much power is being used, though the gas drain is hardly unbearable. I'll go over the intricacies of wiring and how to connect everything momentarily, but the only thing you need to know at this point is that as you connect things to the generator, it will naturally increase the power draw. Hovering your cursor with wire tool in hand over an electrical component will show you how much power it will consume. And if you check the generator, you can see we are drawing 5 additional watts of power after connecting it. The next power generator available is the battery bank. It works much in the same way, but instead of using engines and gas, we use battery. Unlike engines, batteries are a quality-based item, and lower quality batteries will provide less power than higher level batteries. At level 6, the maximum power output is equal to that of the generator. You'll also notice from the UI there is no refuel button. Instead, you can directly turn the generator on, and over time, the batteries lose energy. The purple bar beneath the first battery has lowered relative to the others. Over time, the batteries will be depleted, but not to worry, we have a solution. May I introduce the solar bank? Similar to the battery bank, the solar bank is powered by a quality-based item. That item is the solar cell. Like the batteries, the quality determines the power output. Another thing that determines power output is access to the sun. If I connect the solar bank directly to the light bulb, nothing happens. That is because of the wall behind us. The solar bank on top of the wall, when connected to a light bulb, will power it. The obvious drawback of this power source is, well, darkness. Once the sun goes bye-bye, so too does the power. However, the main power of the solar bank isn't using it as a standalone power generator. It is the fact that you can connect it to the battery bank, which will in turn power everything for free, as now the power consumption of our battery bank is 0 during the daytime. This will also charge your batteries, keeping their lifespan essentially infinite. Once you have a fully functional operating power generator, time to light it up. With wire tool in hand, right-click from the generator to an electric device and right-click again. And from that light bulb, we can do the same thing and right-click to form another connection to another light bulb. If we check our generator, we can see that we are drawing 10 watts as each bulb is 5. We can keep going, and as we connect more, additional power is consumed by the generator. And if we destroy one of the bulbs, everything after it is disconnected while every bulb preceding it is still lit. Generally speaking, you don't want to connect everything in series, meaning from one device to the next, as one broken device in the chain will kill everything downstream attached to it. Instead, directly connect each bulb independently. That way, if we destroy the same bulb, everything else is still powered. Okay, so how many connections can we make? In general, from any component, whether it is a generator, tripwire, trap, relay switch, anything really, you can make 9 outbound connections, meaning 9 downstream connections can be made from any device. However, the maximum incoming connections, that is, power going into device, is capped at 1. Trying to wire another connection over an existing one will override that previous connection. The maximum distance between two devices is 14 blocks. Excluding the blocks that each device occupies, there are 14 blocks in between. But sometimes you may have the need to power things further away. But how would you get around that? One option is the electric wire relay. It consumes 1 watt of power, but provides an additional connection point from which you can connect additional electric devices. Power is automatically transferred through the relay, thus everything downstream of the relay is always powered. Just like we did from the generator, we can also independently connect our light bulbs from the relay. The electric timer relay works in much the same way, except it doesn't always power everything. Why is that, you may ask? This is because it only allows current through its downstream connections within a certain time window that is completely configurable upon interacting with it. Once you set your specified start and end times, you are set. Once the start time arrives, boom, power. And once it reaches the end, there it goes. Generally speaking, I rarely directly connect all my devices straight from the generator. Reason being, you have no control if you want some devices on and others off. Either everything is powered or not. So, I'll connect a generator to a switch, and from the switch, start connecting other things. Reason being, you can toggle the powered state of every downstream connection from the switch. By having multiple switches, you can easily control when you want to use a certain device. You could think of the switch as a manual trigger, one in which you need to manually press a button to change the powered state. However, if you want to power a defensive trap, which we will get to momentarily, it is better to have a zombie's presence trigger the trap rather than yourself. So the first trigger we're going to cover are pressure plates. There are 2 versions, but they do the same exact thing. We connect our plate to a light bulb and step on it, everything lights up. Step off, and everything immediately powers down. If we interact with the pressure plate, we have power delay and power duration. Setting the delay to 2 seconds will simply delay the power of all connections downstream by 2 seconds. If we set the power duration to 5 seconds, if we step on and immediately off, the power stays on for 5 seconds before turning off. This allows the effect to last longer than the trigger event, stepping on and off the plate. Plates are pretty great when used out of line of fire, as they don't have a lot of hit points and can be destroyed by demos and cops pretty easily. They are fully exposed. Our next trigger device is tripwire, which works a bit differently. You need to place down at least 2 tripwire posts and connect them via wire, which will form a purple line between. From the downstream post, connect to your device. When an entity passes through the purple line, that will power everything downstream. It does have a narrow trigger region, but it can cover a large span, up to the maximum distance between wired connections. Like the pressure plates, you can play with power delay and power duration, which functions in the same way. Generally, I use tripwire over pressure plates as the tripwire can pass through walls, allowing you to place the tripwire in safety. And if placed across a corridor, zombies have no choice but to touch it. Motion sensors are the last available trigger mechanism. They can be mounted on walls and work by pointing the camera at a particular region, and anything within that region will activate it. Well, not anything. You can specify what entities will trigger it, which is something the other triggers are not capable of doing. The motion sensor can cover a wide area, which can be a blessing and a curse depending on the situation. For example, you wouldn't want to waste dart ammo if a zombie isn't in the line of fire yet, but you can control the field of view somewhat by smartly aiming the camera. Enough of light bulbs, let's move on to the electric traps. First up, fence posts. Similar to tripwire, you'll need 2 posts from which you'll connect the wire in between. And just like the tripwire, the wire can pass through walls, allowing you to protect your fence posts. You can connect more fence posts together, which we'll get to, but for now, I'll connect them in pairs. Fence posts are now only 1 meter high, which is a change from prior alphas, so any zombies that pass through, including dogs, or the new direwolf, will get zapped. As zombies pass through the fence post, they get shocked, dramatically slowing them down. However, the fence post takes damage over time as zombies pass through. Only the downstream fence post takes damage and is thus the only one that needs repairing, assuming zombies don't whack on the other one. So what happens if you connect multiple fence posts together? It does give you a wide coverage area, but the downside is that all downstream fence posts take damage. Thus, I generally prefer to connect fence posts in pairs, as the first fence post in a pair doesn't take damage, so for the same number of fence posts, pairs will cost less materials to maintain than if they were all connected together. When constructing your base, it is advisable to place your downstream fence posts within repairable range. You can make them directly accessible, like here, or by placing them within repairable range, though not directly accessible. This can be done through a block, though not all shapes allow you to repair a fence post through them. One way to determine if you can repair a fence post is to see if you can wire through the block as well. If you can wire through it, you can also repair through it. Naturally, you can combine fence posts with other electric traps, but when used solo, they are extremely effective, allowing you to stun lock zombies for easier headshots and melee. When doing a late game melee base, for example, electric fence posts make it a lot more manageable. If you recall back when I discussed the pull 4-way, it generally needs an added shape to prevent zombies squeezing through. However, the fence post is a great option as it eliminates the need for other blocks to solve that particular problem. And when space is tight, you can place fence posts horizontally like this, which will keep them safe from zombie attack while also saving some space. Dart traps are probably my favorite damage dealing trap. They fire darts in rapid succession along a single path, along a straight line, and any entity within the line of fire will get hurt. It has a maximum range of about 25 blocks, and within that region at your own peril. Because dart traps are vulnerable and they have a very narrow kill zone, they need to be set up properly. It is best to use them with tripwire and electric fence posts. Tripwire works best as you can set it up along the line of fire, thus it will only fire if a zombie is in the way. However, the zombie could easily run away evading the darts, hence the fence post to keep them in place. Here's the setup. Tripwire on the red blocks, electric fence posts on the blue, and dart traps on the yellow. Connect tripwire to tripwire, which, as we demonstrated before, will create the purple wire that will power all downstream connections once activated. So from our second tripwire, we basically connect everything else. Fence post to fence post, and make sure to place arrow slits or another block in front to protect all the vulnerable traps while allowing the darts to reach their target. Blade traps are special. They deal out really good damage. I really want to like them. Look how cool they look. Unfortunately, they are about as sturdy as tissue paper. First, you have the fact that they need to be exposed by the nature of their function. Spinning blades, slicing zombies in close proximity. So they'll take the occasional swipe from zombies. If that were it, then cool. However, they also take damage from damaging a zombie. 4 points of damage at that. So they can chew through their mediocre hit points pretty quick. And once they are at 25% max health, they stop spinning. In order to use them effectively, they need to be within repairable range. If left alone, they won't last long. That being said, they can be used quite effectively if you minimize their major weakness as much as possible and maximize their strength, high damage per second. Don't place them close enough to babysit them, put them in a confined, tight space to force zombies into the blades, and electric fence posts aren't a bad idea as well to hold them in place as long as possible. And like the blade traps, Electric fence posts also in repairable range as per tip 41. I'm sure you definitely didn't skip that one. Odd turrets. I don't use these too often in builds as they are more resource efficient methods of dealing with zombies. But if you are intent on using them, be warned, they love consuming ammo. If you put them in the wide open, they will shoot at anything and everything within a field of view, which wastes a lot of ammo. So if you are still hell-bent on using them, put them in a confined space. Closer range to zombies, the better. Make every shell or bullet count. I generally prefer the shotgun over the SMG turret, as in tight quarters, the armor-piercing shells are more efficient and less rate of fire, so they'll last longer. But if you have buttloads of 9mm or shotgun shells laying around from looting that you don't ever use as your preferred weapon uses different ammo, then it isn't a bad idea to throw a turret into the mix. Just use it smartly. One other ammo-efficient way to use turrets is to put them on your roof and have them take out vultures. Sure, spikes will do the trick just fine, but if you want a high-tech option, these will do the job well without wasting a lot of ammo. Power doors and hatches are a nice late-game device that opens up a variety of new base building options. Added fundamentally, supplying electricity will open the door. Cutting off electricity will close the door. Since using the switch is rather inconvenient, you would want to use some other trigger like the pressure plate, for example, that would allow you to open it as you approach, and will automatically close once you are through. However, obvious problem. If you want to go through the door the other way, what do you do? Easy. Simply wire from a trigger on one side of the door to a trigger on the other side of the door, and from that trigger to the power door. This way, if you activate any trigger, the door will open on either side. We're not also limited to using a single trigger type. For example, you could use a motion sensor on one side and two 1x1 hatches on the other side. Connect all the triggers together with the last one connecting to the door. That way the motion sensor or any of the two pressure plates will open the door when triggered. You can of course use this idea with anything, including electric traps, if you wanted multiple triggers to activate the same trap. However, my favorite way to use power doors is actually as a zombie dropper. In making this video, I was ready to present a particular design, but learned some AI changes have apparently been made and this no longer works. Essentially, you used to be able to position hatches like this and it would work as a path. With some tripwire at the end connected to the hatches, zombies would reach it, activate the tripwire, and fall. But it appears this is not reliable anymore. Most of the time, they completely ignore the path, and after several attempts of redesigning, this design is apparently no longer consistent. One way that still works is to place the hatches flush against the wall. So when zombies trigger the hatches somewhere else, then it will pop down and the hatches opening a temporary path. Counterintuitively, all electric devices work underwater, even turrets for some reason. But if you've got yourself a water base, consider putting some traps underwater for some extra utility or firepower. The only restriction is you cannot turn on a power generator underwater, so that needs to be on dry land. Okay, time to take everything we know about zombies and screw with the AI for our benefit. These next series of tips will focus on some of my favorite shapes to use in constructing a zombie loop. Our first shape is one I have used since its introduction in Alpha 20, wedge narrow shapes. Essentially, you will turn the path into a slide that zombies will happily repeat forever. Zombies fall around 4 block lengths, so make your slide at least that long if you want no zombies to pass. You can adjust the length to allow some to pass if you want more of an active base. It's constructed like this. First, a row of wedge narrow lows colored in red. Next, wedge narrow middles colored in yellow. On top, we need to cover the top surface of the wedge narrow lows so zombies can't run on top. For that, we shall use the cube quarter meter shape at least 2 blocks high to prevent zombies from jumping on top. In an actual base, I'll go a minimum of 3 high to prevent zombies from jumping on top of each other. Then sit back, relax, and watch all the zombies have fun. Alternatively, you can place them like an actual slide and zombies will run over them. Just make sure that you have a path, preferably with gaps for zombies to fall through, connected from the slide to your fighting or AFK position. You don't need to place the wedge narrows all the way to the ground for this to work, if you want to build something a bit easier. The ramp 6-meter O3 shape was introduced in 1.0 and is even more effective than the wedge narrow, dropping zombies around 2 block lengths versus the wedge narrows 4. The ramp 6-meter comes in 6 different shapes, and the O3 is the only one that works. O1 and O2 are narrower and aren't seen as a path by zombies. The others are too thick and block the zombie pathing. The ramp 8-meter O4 will also work, but it isn't as effective as the ramp 6-meter O3. Here's how to build. First, place a row of ramp 6-meter O3s, followed by the same shape, just inverted. To block the top surface, cover with cube half meters. And on the zombie side, I like to put in the sloped block like the ramp 6-meter O2 colored in yellow. Zombies will eagerly run across, though like I mentioned with the wedge narrow slide, too high isn't always safe, so 3 at a minimum. This shape is an excellent zombie dropper and can be used as an AFK base with minimal blocks, or for other designs in which you want to drop zombies into a particular region and have your way with them. A simple but effective zombie pathing shape is the ramp. Just the regular ramp. It is easy to construct, basically an angled ramp followed by a pillar section at least 3 blocks long. You can use narrower pillars for more effective path, but I'll use thicker ones here just to show how good it is. That will be followed by another ramp section parallel to the first. That is key. From there, you can continue making more zigzag ramp sections or call it an end. Most of the time, zombies will run right off without even hitting the ramp, but on occasion, a more nimble zombie can make it through. So, you can either use a single zigzag to throttle the flow of zombies that reach you at any given time, or add multiple sections to ensure none shall pass. Interestingly, larger, less graceful zombies like cops have a devilish time trying to cross these, so if you're looking for a shape to let some zombies pass, except for cops, then this is a fantastic choice. Not many shapes will only allow certain zombie types to pass. That being said, it isn't 100% guaranteed none will pass, but it is a very low chance. This next one works great as a melee, ranged, or as an AFK base, though the slide designs are more consistent as AFK bases. However, it is extremely simple to set up and involves 2 rows of cube half blocks oriented such that there is a gap in the middle. Block it off with some centered poles. You can't directly use the scaffolds as it will leave a lip for zombies to stand on. You can place scaffolds behind them for spit protection, but the general idea is that zombies will run towards you and fall through the gap. Rinse and repeat. Taco and I have used this as a melee base before, and it works pretty well. The pull 4-way is not only a viable fighting position block, but it can also double serve as a zombie dropping block, which I think is the only block that has both of these traits. It isn't as effective as other options we have discussed, but if you are looking for something a bit less cheesy and want to actively fight the Horde, this is a solid choice. This is how it works. As zombies collect in the corridor, rear zombies will fall through the holes. Zombies at the end will bunch up and not fall through unless you melee or shoot them back such that they will fall. Here's how to set up. Start with a 2-block wide path. On either end, place some supports, here colored in pink. Run the yellow pillar 0.05 meter shape across both sides. In between, place the pull 4-way side by side all the way down. This forms a large central gap between the shapes. Since we want zombies to run over the large gaps and not the edges, block off the edges with the ramp 8-meter O4 shapes colored in blue. I found the thickness of these blocks is great for this purpose. Invert them to create a 2-block high wall. Some wedge 60 tips to ease zombies in. And on top, place some half cubes. I would recommend making a roof for your build like in these examples, but for demonstration purposes, I'll leave the roof off. So as you can see, zombies pile in, some reach the end, and the rear ones drop. This design requires you to be active, but it does lend itself to be a great late game melee base design, as the holes drop enough zombies to prevent you from getting overwhelmed while you hack the Horde down. The next set of shapes are interchangeable, and there is no discernible difference in their effectiveness. Those shapes would be the 0.05 meter half side centered, plate quarter triangle, and plate quarter. Orient these shapes to create the largest gap possible between them. Alone, they aren't extremely effective at dropping zombies. However, when combined with bars or railings, that forces zombies to jump over them and fall between the gaps, turning it into an effective zombie dropper. Alternatively, you can use the window arch trim instead of the bars for a different aesthetic look. If you want some less cheese, replace the pathing blocks with something a bit larger like the pillar 0.5 meter plate. Zombies won't drop, but they will be much slower, allowing you to shoot or melee them. This next one is quite versatile and can be done in a variety of ways. The main idea is to create some pillar staircases, not unlike the classic cube staircase, which forces zombies to jump up, slowing them down. Once you get a bit higher, start separating the distance between your pillar staircase, and in between, put some full-length pillar 0.025 meter middles, colored in pink. As you get higher, transition to the familiar 0.05 meter half-side centered shapes and make the gaps on either end of the red pillars. The reason we don't start these out on the lower pillars is that we want zombies to get higher before dropping. Once you're routed to your platform, let loose and watch zombies try and fail to reach you. What is nice about this design is that the layout can be done in many different ways. Take this base for example. I varied the length of the side-centered pillar sections and routed them in a different way compared with our previous example. This design is rather fun and can be done in endless ways, making no two bases look exactly alike. Vertical pillar 0.0125 meter centered are one of my favorite blocks for melee bases, or for throttling the flow of zombies through any base. Simply set them up vertically in a line, and put your melee position at the end. As you can see, once it is completed, multiple zombies will drop, but some will make it across for some melee action. However, you can easily increase your action by shortening the pillar pathway. The shorter the path, the more zombies will cross, again, making it a great shape to dictate the flow of zombies. Now with our shorter pillar walkway, more zombies will reach us while retaining the ability to drop them, preventing us from getting overwhelmed, which is the key weakness of melee bases late game, not doing enough damage to the horde. Ladders can also make for an effective base. This design can be used anywhere, even against the side of a POI. Simply stack a ladder against the wall of your design or a POI, and at the top, place railing diagonal and a railing over that. Zombies will climb the ladder and repeatedly fall down upon trying to reach the top. You can adjust the design to make it easier for melee attacks by building out on the side and blocking it off with something like scaffolds, allowing you to melee them as they climb and then fall. In general, taller ladders work better, and later hordes will require multiple ladders for redundancy. This is just one example of a late game horde-based design. The player is positioned above the ladders, shooting straight down with a sniper rifle as zombies climb. You can even lob grenades down for some concentrated kills. Optionally, you can add electric fence posts and dark traps for some extra killing power and crowd control utility. The only downside is that the fence posts are not in repairable range, so their lifespan is short-lived. This next one is actually Taco Bear's design, and is rather simple and effective. Hey Taco, why don't you explain your own design?
Why you make me do this?
Because the audience wants to hear from you. Go on, proceed, stop stalling.
Okay, first thing first, your build always complex, and my build is always simple and useful and powerful. And here how it works. So from any ladder, you just knock 3 pieces off from the top and block off the top with any shapes. You can just use cube quarter-meter block, and then you just let the zombie come. Sometimes zombie will squeeze each other up, so you just add an additional block on top, you will block them. That's it. You can literally build anywhere.
Like where?
Anywhere.
Can you be more specific?
That's it. I'm going back to editing now. Bye-bye.
I see how it is. Okay. Well, thanks, Taco. If you all want to see more Taco in future videos, shout it out in the comments. Scream it from the roofs. Give those comments lots of likes to get her on here. And while you're at it, give the video a like. Helps out our small channel a ton. Anyways, tip 64. All praise the almighty triangle. First of its name, defender of all survivors, king of the cheese. It perhaps saved the cheesiest of the cheese for last. Simply stack the window store's 3-sided triangle empty shapes side by side. And that is it. Easy enough for you, Taco? And well, not much else to do but watch the show. You can either ignore them or fight them. Since they clump up so much, grenades and molotovs work incredibly well. These actually work quite well in a pit-based design, making easy grenade fodder. Make multiple cheese ramps for hordes, so if one is lost, there are plenty more. Not much else to say, it just works. We are going to pivot now to shapes that zombies refuse to path over. These are frequently referred to as force field shapes and are handy in a variety of ways. I'll present the several use cases, but first, let's identify some of these shapes. Up till this point, we have used pillars several times in our base designs, but there are certain variants of pillars that are not pathable. In general, if a pillar shape does not have centered or middle in the name, it is not pathable. You can easily identify these shapes visually as being located in the corner of the voxel grid. Placing any of these particular variants down will result in zombies completely ignoring them and instead rushing to your location if there is no other viable path available. Another general category of shapes that are not pathable are window shapes, specifically the empty variant. One notable exception is the almighty triangle, which we covered in a previous tip, but you can take the others, plop them down, and zombies will completely ignore them. There are plenty of shapes that are not pathable in all building shape categories, and it would take a long time to cover every single one. But one of the ones I will specifically call out is the cube half-quarter round inside. Not because it is any more effective than the others, I just think it looks stylish. So I like to incorporate these shapes into some of my builds, and I need a shape to serve a particular purpose. Well, That's as good a segue as any. Time to discuss use cases for force field shapes. And since I was just talking about the cube half-quarter round inside, let's start with its purpose in this build: area denial. By placing these shapes around a vulnerable structure like a support or the foundation of your base itself, you can prevent zombies from attacking that vital structure. Just be sure the unpathable shape is not directly on top of a pathable shape, like ground terrain. Always leave an air gap in between the shape and the ground, or another pathable shape. Otherwise, they won't work. Our second use case is to support suspended structures when supporting directly from the ground isn't viable. Take this example. If these suspended pathways were supported directly underneath, zombies could freely attack the supports and collapse the pathways. As we discussed in the early tips, a support directly underneath provides the most stability, but here we sacrifice that for safety. Furthermore, using a force field type shape for this purpose will prevent zombies from running over the support, which could be a bad thing if they could cross. In this pit base, I want to keep zombies in the pit, and if they could walk over the supports, they could just simply jump on top of each other or break a block and jump out of the pit. So if you want to use horizontal supports in your builds, always use those as a force field shape. Our last use case is to force zombies to stay along a given path or to take a longer route than they would otherwise naturally take, as the force field keeps them within bounds. This is probably the cheesiest way to use force fields, but it works well if you want to artificially keep zombies running in a wild loop. The next few tips will focus on the topic of anti-rage zombie mechanics. You may have noticed throughout the video thus far that when zombies fall, they may rush toward a nearby block and bash on it instead of immediately following the designed path again. That is because of zombie rage. When zombies fall, they have a % chance, which is increased by game difficulty, to enter destroy area mode, in which they'll seek out a nearby structure and attack it. This is problematic as over time, a horde can demolish your path, your stairs, your supports, your base foundation, anything they can touch. Up till now, I have not implemented any anti-rage designs in any of the demonstrations here. So let's start with the first: height. If zombies fall within a short enough distance from the player, they have a chance to enter destroy area mode, aka rage. At a 9-meter height, we can see a decent number of zombies enter this mode upon falling. It'll take them several seconds to recover and return to seeking out the player. At 11 meters, we see destroy area at a lesser frequency, while at 13 meters, we can see none enter that mode. As long as you drop zombies from around a 13 block height, you should be safe from rage mode. Though if you have zombies landing on top of each other in a pile, that will decrease the effective fall height. So you would be well advised to have them fall from a bit higher just to be safe. However, if you wish to build your structures shorter, you absolutely can. The second anti-rage design you can implement is using electric traps. Drop a zombie, it will rage. Drop a zombie and shock it, nice and peaceful. As long as a zombie takes damage from another source, like the fence post here, they will forget all about their rage and instead return to what they do best, falling repeatedly. Our final method for anti-raging zombies is water. If you are building over a lake or a river, job done. That is an inherent advantage of a water base. But if you want to implement this feature on land, it will require some extra work. The height of this setup is 9 meters, so we can compare the frequency of rage relative to the prior 9-meter test. Now, it seems there are some changes to this from past alphas, so this is what I found. In the past, I always recommended making the depth of your water at least 3 blocks deep, but that doesn't seem to work anymore, as I caught some zombies bashing a block as soon as they finished their high dive. That being said, the frequency of rage mode is less than when we did the 9-meter fall without water. After multiple revisions, increasing the depth of the water to 5 blocks has had a dramatic effect on the prevalence of rage. I still saw an occasional rage, but it was very infrequent. So if you want to use water as your anti-rage approach, make sure to drop zombies into a depth of water at least 5 blocks or more for the best results. We've covered a lot of zombie AI and pathing quirks, but how about zombies that don't fit the particular mold, like vultures and dogs? Vultures will always attack the blocks directly overhead your position, so it goes without saying, roofs are important. But how can you deal with them? Bars or railings are a simple solution. It blocks them from simply pecking your head while allowing you to shoot through the blocks. Unlike other approaches, it does require your active attention to eliminate them, but it is a viable tactic if you're short on resources. Simple wooden spikes are more than enough to take them out. Simply place them on top of your roof and watch as vultures dive bomb repeatedly into them with no effort required on your part. As I mentioned earlier in the video, you can use turrets, or even blade traps for that matter, to deal with vultures. But why do that when simple spikes work so well? Dogs and direwolves. Most path designs I have mentioned in the video will work on them as well. Naturally, any base design that uses ladders as its only zombie path will not work on dogs, as they cannot climb ladders. So if you're getting a lot of dogs in your hordes, either give them a viable path to follow, or have some other means to deal with them while you engage the other zombies. The ladder base I showcased earlier has the grenade portholes, which allow me to deal with any zombies that cannot climb. So ladder bases are still viable, just need to have a way of handling the canine threat. Our last batch of tips are general useful designs that I incorporate into my various base designs. The first one I use a ton. You are looking for an easy way to gain entrance to a base that is completely unreachable by zombies. Build a ladder 2 blocks from the ground up to your entry point. Zombies will not be able to climb it, while you are easily able to jump up and gain access to your base. If you struggle with headshots, consider a forced zombie crawl design. If you construct a corridor with less than 2-meter height, zombies will crawl instead of running upright. Many shapes can work for this purpose, but a super way to achieve it is to place cube 3/4 over an existing path, and that will create the perfect height to force zombie crawls. However, zombies will tend to bash at the entrance, so ease them into the crawl, start with a thinner shape, and zombies will crawl inside with much more consistency. Throwing grenades is awesome, but sometimes you may not have the best angle on groups of zombies where they'll do the most carnage. Enter grenade chutes. You can easily create a guided track for your grenades to hit their intended target zone. Here's one such design using ramp blocks. Simply make a ramp leading from your floor to the outer wall, with a rotated ramp directly overhead to make an even angled shaft. This will prevent any zombies from crawling up your chute while also leaving enough room for grenades to go down. If, however, the region in which you want to target is directly beneath you, consider option number 2. Simply using the cube 1-meter hole will provide an excellent path for your grenades to the zombies below. You can even set up a backboard to bounce your grenades down the hole without needing to get too close and accidentally fall down yourself. As an added bonus, you can even set up a warning system using some tripwire and a light bulb. If you run some wire underneath the hole and attach it to the light bulb, much in the same way as I repeatedly did during the electricity tips, you can create an alert system whereby zombie hits the wire, light bulb indicates zombie presence, and lob grenades down for maximum effect. Okay, we are almost at the end, folks. I want to quickly cover a topic as a bonus tip, as I've received several comments in recent videos on how to use the dev block replace tool. So here's how you do the magic. Step 1. Get the tool by enabling creative mode in the console by pressing F1 to open it, type in CM. In the Creative tab, type in Dev and enable Dev Blocks. You'll spot the handy wrench right here. Here's how it works. Left-click to copy a block shape, and right-click on a block to replace it with the copied shape. This isn't limited to terrain. You can replace any shape with another shape. If I place some cubes, I can replace these as well by right-clicking each one. If you hold up R, that will bring up some wrench options. If you select Use Default Paint of New Block, it will instead replace the block, but use the default block texture, or that material, steel in this case. If, however, you want to replace the paint job with the copied block, select Use Paint of Copied Block. And now all replaced blocks are yellow, the color of our original pillar. Replacing one block at a time is rather tedious. If you select Replace All Blocks of Same Type and try to right-click, you'll get the message below. What you need to do is press Z while in debug mode, and a blue box will appear. Pressing Z again will expand the size of the box to the point you aimed. Now right-clicking will replace all the blocks you targeted. We can also replace blocks with air to create a nice hole. If we bring out our blue box again and press and hold on G, it will bring up RGB axes. If you click and drag on one of the axes, it will move the box in that direction. If you shift and hold G, it will bring up this set of axes, which will allow you to drag out the dimensions of the blue box. Once you've defined the region you want, right-click and start replacing the blocks. You only replace the targeted block, so if you have multiple block types within the region, you will need to target each type. If you want to line your pit with some cubes, simply expand the size of the box blocks in each direction, copy the cube shape, and right-click on each block type to replace. And there you have it, a completely dug out pit lined with blocks using minimal effort. At last, we've reached the end. I hope you all learned a thing or two, and for new players especially, I hope you all have a greater understanding of the fundamentals of base building. If anyone has a particular topic you'd like me to make in a future video, let me know in the comments. I've got a list of a few ideas based on prior comments that will be coming out in the next few weeks, so if you want yours to be added to the queue, please share your ideas. And of course, if you have any questions about anything within this video, I'll do my best to answer them as quickly and concisely as possible. Thank you all so much for watching. This video was a labor of love and took a lot of time from Taco and I to make it a reality. If you like our content and want to support us, the best way is to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already a part of the posse. Don't forget to tap the bell to receive the latest video notifications so you won't miss out on the next one. I'd also like to extend a heartfelt thank you to our wonderful, loyal Patreon members whose generosity is funneled back into the channel to give you all better quality content. Taco and I really appreciate all of your kindness. On that note, this is Eerie Knight signing off. See you all in the next video.